So here's our upper traps. Go ahead and palpate that for me on your partner. You can have a pillow or no pillow. It depends on if the patient likes the pillow or not. Just find patient comfort. Yeah, bring it on around over here if we can get this kind of nice angle and see where we're at. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so here's our upper trap. And now what I want you to do is just nice and gently, I want you to kind of palpate in that upper trap until you find something that feels a little tension tone. The patient is going to tell you that it feels a little bit irritable. And you should feel like a rope, like a ropish type structure that is running, with the fibers of the muscle, which is kind of swinging through like this. Okay? So it's going to be like a ropey, thready type structure. You feel that? Okay? When you find that ropey, thready structure, stay on it. And what I want you to do is palpate it with this little pincer grip up and down that rope until you find the most irritable spot. Okay? So you just pinch it, kind of put a little pressure on it. Obviously communicate with your patient. That's going to be your feedback to know what's going on. How's it feel right there? Tender. Okay, I'm going to keep going up and down. You tell me where it feels most tender.
Do you want to say something about the direction being perpendicular?
Pretty tender there. So what I'm doing is if my finger was the rope, right? I'm palpating it now and I'm going perpendicular to the fibers now, stroking it like I'm going to magnify it. I'm doing this to that rope. Okay, kind of like a perpendicular, not a strum, but almost. Like you kind of have to provoke it, right? So I'm pulling that tissue back and forth and squeezing it all at the same time. And I'm going up and down that fiber to find where the most hyperirritable spot is. And she told me that it was somewhere about right here. And normally you could feel that ropey that ropey structure get even more kind of like a little nuggy, if you will, like a little pea inside of there. So there's a little hyperirritable spot, and you could, in my mind, I envision the actin and myosin being all jumbled up in that spot. And it's going to be hypersensitive. It's going to be tender compared to the rest of it. You guys find that yet? Okay, so when you find that spot, you're simply going to stay there and you're going to give a little compression, continuously communicating with your patient to see how much they can tolerate. Okay? Is it going to be a bit of discomfort for the patient? Yes, but we're not going to take them to the point of like pain, right, to where they can't tolerate it. So how do you feel with that pressure there? All right? Okay, I'm going to progress a little deeper. Tell me when you feel a little bit of discomfort there. Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. And all I do is ischemic pressure is I'm going to hold, okay? Try to hold that pressure for a prolonged amount of time. And what I'm feeling for them, what I'm doing is not only communicating with my patient, I like the terms better, worse, no change. So after about 30 seconds, I'll communicate with my patient and say, okay, how do you feel? Is it getting better, worse, or no change? I'm also paying attention to what my fingers feel, right? That pressure in between my fingers, you can feel those tissues start to what we call melt, right? If it's working, if the treatment is working, you might start to feel the tension in that tissue start to kind of like disengage. It'll start to relax a little bit. And usually you can kind of pair that up with what you're talking about to your patient. You can say, hey, better, worse, no change. And they may say, yeah, it's actually starting to feel a little better. And you go, great, I'm going to stay here maybe a little bit longer and get that tissue to fully relax. You doing okay?
Yes.
How you feeling right here? Better, worse, no change?
Better.
Better? Okay. So if they're getting better, I may stay there a little bit longer until I feel the treatment effect I want in the sense that it's relaxing. And then there you go. That is it. That is ischemic pressure relax. I'm going to come out nice and slow from that pressure, okay? I'm not going to just bounce out of it, because if you bounce out of it, you can actually reintroduce, that GTO response and actually make it contract. So I'm going to come out nice and slow with that pressure. You okay?
Yes.
And then I'm going to, do some nice little gentle soft tissue work on top of it just to follow that up with. Okay? Now, big picture take home is to address that whole posture imbalance with a thorough exam, depending on what I found was maybe tight, maybe weak, something in there. I'm going to address that with some, doorway stretches or scapular strengthening that I found in my examination that's going to offload these muscles right here. That's probably the key, most important part of any of this treatment. Okay? So that was just the bare bone basics ischemic pressure on a trigger point. And this trigger point can be anywhere. It can be in a deltoid, right? It could be in the bicep. It could be in any of the extensors, anywhere in the body, right? It can even be in the mastoid and the pterygoids and the temporalis. Like if you got headaches, there could be a trigger point right here in the temporalis, and you palpate. You find that hyperirritable spot. You can do the same thing right there. I find that hyperirritable spot, and now just with one finger pressure, I'm going to do the same ischemic hold. Okay? Progress into it, see how my patient feels with that, and then wait until that tissue responds and go from there. All right, here's a quick little chat though, to make sure that you understand this clinically. What if I'm holding the pressure there and they start saying it's actually getting worse? What do you do then? Their symptoms start to increase with your ischemic pressure. Without wasting time, I'm going to say, yeah, you're going to back off your pressure, right? So I would say if you're holding it, and don't give up just yet. A lot of people would say maybe give up. I don't say give up. I say back your pressure off, at least 50, maybe 50% of your pressure, if not even more, and see if they can tolerate that less pressure and go, okay, how about that? How does that feel? And they say, yeah, that's better. It's not as bad. Okay, let's wait here for a second. And then they go, okay. And let's say the scenario says that, okay, now it's starting to feel better. Okay, great. I'm going to add a little pressure to it and see if they can now tolerate your pressure once things settle. And then you keep moving into the tissues until it gets the treatment response that you want. If I back off 50% and then they still say, nah, it's still getting worse, it's too hyperirritable, right? Something is just too aggravated, and then we need to go back to palliative measures, which might be ice or some type of supportive positioning, ACE wrap, something that's going to maybe give that afferent signal to the tissues to, hey, just calm down without any aggravation. Okay, so there is the option of going forward or backing up with any of these treatments. And you got to understand that. So the fibers run this way. Would you guys concur? Right, infraspinatus is in the posterior aspect of the shoulder and this entire fossa right here. Right? Oh, by the way, guys, I'm still wearing my watch because I can't get it off. I put this cool fancy new device that they're letting me try out. I'll explain that to y'all later some other time. But anyway, I have my watch on. I wouldn't normally have a watch on. It's not a watch. It's whatever that thing is. Okay, so fibers are running this way. So I'm going to go into it and palpate perpendicular to these structures, right? So I'm going to find any type of ropey structure in there. And again, you want your patient to be as supported as possible. So sometimes I like to take this pillow and put it underneath their arm again so that they can be like a wet noodle, right? I want them comfortable. I want that muscle disengaged. So I'm going to palpate perpendicular, and I'm looking for a ropey structure. There we go, right there already. I usually know where they are because over time you kind of know where the stress points are. But I'm going to scan this entire muscle because I'm a good clinician. I want to see what's all going on, right? How are we doing? So probably most tender about right there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I found that hyperirritable band, I'm going to go up and down it and try to find the most tender spot, or where I find a little nodule in there. And it seems like it's more right there. How about this spot?
Yes.
Yes. How about here?
I like it.
Yes. So this is more your spot. Okay, so we found the most irritable spot, and I do feel a little kind of a tension in there. And all I do is, again, I'm going to hold that pressure on that spot. You might want to buddy them up because you're going to need your longevity as far as endurance goes. And I simply hold that spot, okay, until that whole cascade of events and everything that we just talked about of communicating with the patient, paying attention to what I feel, and seeing when that tissue starts to melt and let go. If we got a little time, we do. I'm gonna add some flavor to this, okay? And this is really effective. This next method. I could, as I'm holding this trigger point with ischemic pressure, I can add a gentle active contraction of that muscle to get a little bit even more advanced. So we're gonna add the nervous system kind of disengagement to this whole process. So I'm holding my trigger point right here. And what I can do is, because it's an infraspinatus, it does external rotation of the shoulder, I can say, can you lift your hand off the table right here? Good, and relax. Now the next time you do that, I want you to not actually lift your hand off the pillow. I just want you to just unweight it out the pillow. Good, and do that. Now why did I say just unweight it out of the pillow? What I want is, I don't want a big strong contraction out of this. I want a very gentle, controlled, isolated contraction. And you're going to see that that's much more effective than trying to go, "Rawr," He-Man kind of. You're not strengthening anything. You're simply trying to engage that muscle to talk to the nervous system to say, hey, this is a problem here, because you can feel it now. Now the brain's aware of where you're palpating and putting the pressure. Engage it, and the biggest benefit to this entire process is the relaxation part. When they let go, you'll feel that muscle kind of go, oh, this is how you're supposed to relax. So you're almost trying to teach the system there where you're palpating to learn to relax. So you engage it gently, and then you keep holding the pressure the entire time. You never let your pressure go where you're at on that trigger point. Then you let it go, and you ask them to relax, and that's where the magic happens. And when they relax, you're going to start feeling that tissue start to melt even faster than if you just sat there and held it. It goes a little quicker when you do it this way, and I think a little bit more effective too. And then relax. Beautiful. How you feel here now?
Fine.
Fine. So she doesn't actually even feel any tenderness there in the spot anymore, unless I move. But you get the picture. This has been shown to be, up there just to be as potentially as effective as dry needling. Believe it or not, the contract relax method of ischemic pressure works really, really well for your clients. Okie dokie. Try that out. We're gonna do some breakout groups.